These talks represent a real push by the Americans to try to get some sort of ceasefire deal on the table. Right now, as you mentioned, the CIA director is expected to meet with his counterparts from Israel and Egypt, as well as Qatar's prime minister. All this comes as this real push is going on to try to cease the fighting in the Gaza Strip. Now, U.S. officials who've spoken to the Associated Press describe one potential deal that's on the table. Again, I have to stress that this is just one potential deal. There's nothing formal yet. But this one proposal would see a phased ceasefire. In the first month of this ceasefire, there would be a release of hostages who were either elderly or infirmed or wounded from the October 7th attack. They would be released in exchange for a number of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. In the second month, the hostages remaining in Gaza, which would be male civilians as well as any soldiers, would be released in exchange for a further release of Palestinian prisoners, as well as more aid on both of those months going into the Gaza Strip. Again, this is all pretty vague right now. There's no real number set for the number of Palestinian prisoners that would be released, but this is all coming as there's really been a concerted international effort to stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip. We've seen one ceasefire so far in this war that saw some 100 hostages released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners being released, but that lasted only for a week in November and then broke down and the fighting resumed. Now the Israelis have a real tight grip on the southern part of the Gaza Strip, and there's worries about those civilians that are trapped there in inclement weather, this winter rain that we've seen. So there is a desire to try to get this ceasefire going. However, we've heard both hardline statements from both Hamas and the hardline government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So any ceasefire is not guaranteed at this moment, Paul.
Okay, and John, there's also a crisis over the United Nations aid because of claims that some of its staff in UNRWA, the Palestinian agency, were involved in the Hamas attacks in October in Israel. What have we heard on that today?
That's right. So we've heard just in the last few hours that France is going to join over 10 other nations, including the United States, that have paused their funding for this UN agency. This UN agency, known by the acronym UNRWA, has been really crucial since the formation of Israel in 1948 to provide services and aid to Palestinian refugees. Now, it's decades later. They're still in operation. They provide doctors, nurses, medical aid, food aid, as well as school teachers to help Palestinians here in Palestinian territories, as well in other countries where there are Palestinian refugee camps even to this day. Now, these allegations, I have to stress, have not been made public. The evidence has not been made public, but what we do know is that Israel had presented these allegations and evidence to the United Nations. They said that they took action. The U.S., which is the main backer of this UN agency, has said there were 12 people named in this allegation. We've also heard from the organization itself in the last few days. They say that they're doing an investigation. The UN as a whole is doing an investigation into these allegations. Again, nothing has been made public, but the fact that we've seen all these nations take action suggests that whatever allegations have been made are pretty grave. But again, this is a really crucial aid organization for the Palestinians, especially those civilians that are suffering right now in the Gaza Strip, caught in the middle of this war. We've heard from both the head of this agency as well as the UN Secretary General urging these countries that have stopped aid to restart aid, saying it's crucial for these civilians now caught in this war.